Okay, it should be connecting us over. Well, hello, Facebook world. We are so excited to be here with you all today. My name is Brittany Flogger, and I am the Manager of Strategic Partnerships at Spark Learning Lab. And I'm joined today with my friend, Stephen Viehweg. While we wait for some others to hop on here, we would love for you to share where you might be joining us from. We would also love to know what role you play in the early childhood field. So are you the owner of a childcare, a director, or a community partner? So feel free to drop your comments in the box. We're very excited to be talking to you about a topic that's near and dear to our hearts today. But while we wait for some more to jump on here, feel free to tell us where you're from. Steve, where are you joining us from?
Well, I live in Greenfield, which is in Hancock County, but I am joining you today from downtown Indianapolis. I work at the IUPUI campus in the School of Medicine in the Division of Developmental Medicine for the Indiana LEND, which stands for Leadership, Education, and Neurodevelopmental Disability. So I'm on campus today, joining you live on Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you. I am down in Bargersville, Indiana. So just about 20 minutes south of downtown Indianapolis. So I am down here in Johnson County. We've got Darcy with us from Spark Learning Lab, and she's just kind of helping manage those comments that come through. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. So like I said, my name is Brittany Flogger. I'm the Manager of Strategic Partnerships at Spark Learning Lab. I'm joined here with Stephen Viehweg, and he's going to share a little bit more about himself here in a minute. But I want to introduce you to Wellness Wednesdays. So you might start seeing this hashtag of Wellness Wednesday just trend across our Spark Learning Lab social media platforms. And what this is an opportunity for us to share with you each week about resources that we want to highlight around wellness and mental health, trainings that might be provided across the state to you, and just other services that we're going to be offering. So we're very excited to share this with you. I encourage you to check out Wellness and Mental Health, which is underneath our services tab at indianaspark.com. as well as wellness and mental health resources that are now available on My Spark Learning Lab. To access My Spark Learning Lab, you go into your iLead account. If you do not have a free account, you can sign up for one at ilead.in.gov. From there, you can click on the green My Spark Learning Lab button, and from there you can choose mental and social emotional health, which is located on the homepage. So we're very excited to be standing up these new services to you, a new way to navigate to those resources on this topic. And we're going to go ahead and get started with our first Wellness Wednesday. So today I'm going to be introducing you to Stephen Viehweg. And like he said, he's coming to us from the IU School of Medicine. Stephen, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself with Facebook?
I'm happy to. I'm so glad to be invited and to be here. And Brittany, I have to say, I'm so thankful that Spark Learning Labs is making this available. In the last couple of years, have had lots of occasions to talk to childcare providers, early care education providers, and to get a sense of how hard this has been. We've just been in such a hard time. And so it's nice to have some various ways to make information available that could help everybody accomplish the goals that we're trying to accomplish, and that's to be the best place we can for kids and their families, but also for ourselves. So I love this concept of Wellness Wednesday. And so I'm coming to you as a licensed clinical social worker with a specialization in infant and toddler mental health. So I often like to share that I have some letters after my name. I have a IMH-E, which is Infant Mental Health Endorsed. And that's a credential that is available to anybody in our world that works with young children. And it's a competency-based credential that focuses on social emotional development. So something that we're already doing. And what I think is helpful about getting this endorsement, which by the way is through Infancy Onward, our Infant Mental Health Association, is that it helps us connect to other people in our communities that also are looking at social emotional development, and particularly those clinical people who have expertise and could help us help those kids and their families when they're struggling, so that we can keep them where they are and get them the supports and services they need to be successful, especially as a result of a pandemic. So I've spent a lot of my time in my professional world as a social worker focusing on social emotional development, and doing that with the IU School of Medicine through our Indiana Lend. And I'm so happy to have this chance to be here today to chat with you, Brittany, about wellness and how we can achieve that. What are the things available to us to make that happen?
Yeah, we are so happy to have you. And we do know that we have all faced many challenges within the last few years with this pandemic. And we know that the early childhood landscape has shown some amazing strength and resilience as we learn and navigate how to serve children and families through this pandemic and beyond. Now, how are we making these transitions back to care? Maybe you had to close your program, you're opening it back up, or you've stuck it out through this whole pandemic and been able to continue your business on. So we've just seen so much happen here. And with the help of these strong partnerships that we're creating at Spark to support the children and families, we really hope that we have this opportunity to lay the foundation for healthy child growth and development for the providers, engage the families in this learning process, and connect everyone to resources in order to create a system that can ultimately thrive together. Steve and I have talked a lot about this. We are just at a very unique point to just lay this foundation, and we are so excited. This is just one step, providing Wellness Wednesdays, but we hope through joining these, you just learn more about the services and resources that are out there for you. So Steve, let's talk about some of these things that we're hearing out in the field. I know that in conversations I've had with providers and with colleagues, I'm just hearing a lot about it's really hard to find staff. Staff aren't staying. And so I have a lot of staff turnover within my program, which then is costly for my business. Navigating challenging behaviors that children might be facing. And most recently, I heard one that providers that are working alone. So maybe they're a home provider and they're caring for 10 children or more, and they're isolated, they feel alone. Kind of made me feel as though, like when I went from working downtown, similar to you, Steve, and now I work remote. And so I'm in my home by myself a lot. So then adding on children on top of that, if you're caring for children, just the stressors that they're facing right now. What are some ways that providers can feel supported and ultimately build resilience during these times?
Well, I appreciate your first comment, Brittany, was that it sounds like in all of our conversations, people have done an amazing job of finding ways to get through it and be resilient and be supportive. And what I'm always impressed about it when I talk to our audience, these are childcare folks, whether they're directors or teachers or whatever role they play, they always have the child and the family at the forefront and put themselves last. And I think this is an opportunity for us to recognize that this work takes a toll on us too. And so a place like a Wellness Wednesday is a great place to get some support, some affirmation that we aren't in this alone, that we do have opportunity to learn from each other and use the things that work. So I think one thing we can do in sharing is find out ideas from each other about what has been successful. Because I, like you, am hearing very similar things from people about where they're struggling. So it is a struggle about, and it's not surprising that we're struggling because kids are coming back to care, or maybe to care for the first time, right? Or to maybe an education setting. They've not had that experience because of the pandemic. So it's new and different for them. And they're not sure what to do. And their parents may not be sure, like, what's happening. And then that's a stress for the staff, who also are struggling with their own issues and their own families. So everybody's having a hard time, and so are we, the ones that are trying to hold all this space for everybody. And so we too need a place that we can go, like you said, and just kind of talk about it, ask some questions, get some ideas about how we can help ourselves. So I think when we talk about ideas, it's helpful to remember that they apply perhaps to all those different levels. So if we have a suggestion about how might we help staff stay with us, that might include being mindful and paying attention to the relationship that I have with the staff, to check in with them and see how they're doing. Well, that same strategy could be useful for you and me to check in with each other, and so we don't feel isolated. But also it would be good for the staff that we have to do that with the families that are coming in, and to check in on that relationship, just ask how they're doing and help link them to resources. And then ultimately, in a parallel process, we think families would be more in tune with what their kids are experiencing. So I think that's a benefit. A big benefit of like a Wellness Wednesday is that we could hopefully apply any of the ideas or things that we talk about to any of these aspects of these questions that we're dealing with, because there's some relevance to it.
I think building that connection is crucial. Just being human and asking each other, how are you doing today? And the power of that impact on an individual is amazing. Sometimes we don't realize that time can go by without us asking those basic questions to check in on each other. And so I love that you mentioned that, because I think that that's crucial in our lives. And, it really made me think about some of those providers who are also parents. And so they might be serving their own children at the same time. And so they're wearing so many hats, as we all do. And so I just really appreciate that connectiveness. I really hope that Wellness Wednesdays bring about a sense of community, where we can all support each other and share ideas at the same time.
Well, and we're learning to do it in a different way, because here we are all in our separate locations using the Zoom platform to connect to the Facebook Live audience. And so it may not feel like the same sort of connection, but in fact, I think you're saying we can find ways to reach out to each other and make some connections. And then certainly we'll figure out, because we have kids coming back into our settings where that's very much personal, and still trying to figure out, like, well, how do we connect with the families when they come in? Do we let them come back, or do we come up with a way to connect with them at the front door and make a transition? But that's all that reintegrating into the personal space to figure it out, but we need it all. And now at least we have some tools to do it. So that's the other piece I think that we're all figuring out, is how do we use what's available to us to help us come back in a new way, get those connections, pay attention to each other and those needs, and to get the needs met that as they come up, so that we can do what we're trying to do. And that's really pay attention to kids and their development and their success and their readiness for what's after when they leave our programs.
Yeah, I love that. Now, one of the support systems that has been put into place by partnerships with the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning, Spark Learning Lab, and licensed clinical social workers are our facilitated provider support groups. Steve, I know that you've been leading some of these facilitated provider support groups for the past, 24 weeks or so. We've actually gone through 2 rounds of this, and we're about to launch our 3rd. Can you share what these support groups are and what these spaces provide to early childhood providers?
Absolutely. It's such a great opportunity. Thank you to all who have made this possible. I'm so pleased that the office right at the state level has recognized the need to support our providers out in the community with an opportunity, a place where they can go, and it's virtual, but a space where you can come and have a conversation to talk about what's going on. And we have had these 24 weeks of testing it out to see how it works. And so what I can tell you is that for those that have taken advantage of it, their feedback would say that it is a place where they can raise a question. And some of the questions are those that you already brought up, like, I'm trying to figure out how do I keep the staff that I have, and how do I use the resources that are available? Or, oh my gosh, the kids that are coming back, they're just so much, they're struggling with how to be part of this. So like, how do we understand that? Or parents, the families they're really struggling and they have all these, so what are we doing? And what's happened in our conversations is we've been able to listen to each other, ask some questions to better understand, and then provide some links and resources of things that have worked other places, or we go find some resources to better understand what to do. And so the feedback that what people say is, oh my gosh, this is a place where I feel heard, I feel supported, and I get a lot of great ideas. And when people come back, they're able to report back when they've tried things or they found something and what happened and how it works. So it's a great opportunity. It's a great resource. It works best, I would say, when people commit to it. So like, to get the most benefit is if you say, yeah, I want to come to this, pick a time that's the best in your schedule. And of course things come up, but I think what I found is that when people come and they experience it, then they understand why we say make it a commitment, because then they come back. And that's where you really get the opportunity to explore and think and figure out how to solve things. And in a short, we have 1 hour, but that hour goes by really fast, but it's really beneficial. I think people leave feeling like they've gotten something out of it, even if it isn't the problem that I brought today. I'm going to get something out of it because likely there's something similar going on in my setting, in my scenario. And so there's going to be something that I can learn from it. Or I even just benefit by being part of the group that's asking questions to better understand what's happening with you, which gives me a better sense of my own setting, things that I'm working at. So it's a great opportunity, and I encourage people to take advantage of it, especially because you're offering this at no cost to people. It's a resource that has lots of benefit and links to other kinds of resources that you might not even be aware of at the moment.
I love that. Again, building connection and community, taking some of those larger items, bringing them down to a smaller circle where you're getting to work alongside your peers, but then also having that facilitated by a licensed clinical social worker that can really guide conversations and help navigate you to the best resources with whatever you might be struggling with. So I love the organic conversations that are happening in these groups that are supporting providers in so many ways.
And Brittany, I would add, there's been several times it's come up when maybe a provider is very worried about a child and a family, and they see concerns, and oftentimes they're not sure like how to bring it up, or should they bring it up, or are they on the right track? And these groups have been a place because someone like me, as a licensed clinical social worker, brings a level of knowledge about mental health, about child development, that can be helpful to help tease out maybe some more information, or to help ask questions, or to provide some guidance and support about, well, how might you have a conversation like that? Or what would you do next? What information would be helpful? Or how do you present your information to a family in a way that's inviting, that's supportive, that doesn't like worry you about making a diagnosis, because we don't do that, right? That's what other people do, but we don't want to offend families or worry them, but we do worry about them. And what I often tell people is that our research tells us that parents look to us in the early care education world as the trusted resource. And so they expect us to let them know if there are questions or concerns, or to help lead them to other resources, because they trust us. And the reason they trust us is because we develop relationships with them. We have their kids, we talk to them. And so I think that's helpful to know that, families look to us in these settings to help them when there are questions, or to navigate things. They would expect us to tell them when there are questions and concerns. So again, these groups have been a way to help talk about that and to affirm or get more information or begin to feel comfortable and develop a plan about like, well, what should I do? How would I go about doing that? So please think about using that as a way to have those, when those difficult, hard questions come up, that here's a place to talk about it and to get some resources and support.
Yeah, I think, in a past time, I was a preschool teacher and I had the biggest fear of sitting down and just having those parent teacher conferences. So we would do we did an annual evaluation on the children just to assess their development. And that was when I was teaching preschool. And I just remember the fear I had going into those meetings.
Yeah.
Fresh out of college and loved talking about child development, but was just always so nervous about how the family would approach any of the concerns I may have or areas that I wanted to work on with their child. So being able to be a part of a group where I can speak that out and get support would have been huge years ago when I was in those shoes. So I encourage anyone out there who's just looking to get more connected and share their stories and their struggles to join one of our support groups. I think that they're a wonderful place of community. And I just thank you, Steve, for your willingness to be one of the facilitators for one of our support groups. So starting April 25th, we will actually be launching 4 new facilitated provider support groups. Again, they are all led by different LCSWs. So those will be happening on Tuesdays at 2 and 4 o'clock. We'll have another one on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. And then our last one will be on Fridays at 2 o'clock. So you've got 4 different opportunities to join a support group. They meet weekly for 12 weeks, as Stephen mentioned, and just a great space and community to be connected with. I know that Steve makes himself available. They can email and he emails them to let them know that group is going to be starting each week. And so we just look forward to sending out some communications here within this next week so that you can register. So be on the lookout for those emails that'll be sent out to you. And we encourage you to register for those. Well, Stephen, that wraps up our Wellness Wednesday, our very first one. So thank you so much for joining me. Just so much information was shared. And I just thank you so much again for all of the work that you do across our entire state and beyond. I know that your name is mentioned in so many places, and just thank you for the work that you do and the support that you provide to our field. And we hope that you all found this Wellness Wednesday to be beneficial. We're excited to bring on more professionals to interview and chat with. We would love to hear from you all. Feel free to drop in the comment box if there's a topic you would love to hear more about. We can find the professionals and bring them in to share more about those topics. We do have a few moments here if there are any questions that you have out there in the field. If you guys have any questions right now that you would like to ask Steve or myself, we are here to answer them for the next couple of minutes.
And Brittany, while people are perhaps asking a question or sharing a comment, I just want to share my gratitude to Spark and to the supporters at the Office of the Out of School Learning. I never can say that name right. And to the other supporters of making these opportunities available, because I'm so impressed with the work that happens in our state to support kids and their families in their initial learning experiences as they are developing and growing and getting ready to go to what's next, to school and eventually to employment and moving out of their parents' homes and starting out in the world. And so I'm glad that there's opportunity to support this incredible network across our state. So thank you guys for making this possible.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I just piggyback on that. I am just so thankful that we have the opportunity to share these resources with everyone. This is a unique opportunity for us all to be talking about wellness and mental health. and really just breaking it down and reducing the stigma for people and just making you all feel comfortable that we're here to support you in this field as much as we can. And so, so I thank you. I'm taking a look at our comments here. It looks like we've had a lot of people just saying, thank you so much for this great opportunity, Steve. Thank you for sharing with us. Those times for the facilitated provider support groups, those were Eastern times that I gave. So again, that was Tuesdays at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Wednesdays at 2 o'clock and Fridays at 2 o'clock as well. Trying to see, I can't see all the comments on my end. Darcy, if you're still here, are there any other comments or questions that have come through?
So we haven't had any comments come through yet. If you're still on with us, feel free to drop them in the chat. While we give people another minute or so, I do have a question for you. For those who are maybe watching this video later and are interested in some of the programs and opportunities you've mentioned or have questions, where should they go?
Great question, Darcy. So my suggestion, if you do have any questions or comments following watching this live or recorded later, you can go to indianaspark.com. You can click on the services tab, go down to wellness and mental health supports. And on that webpage, we actually have a form that you can fill out if you would like to know more about any of our services. So there are a list of our services on that form that we are currently providing. And we would be more than happy to connect with you and share more about them, as well as get you registered for whatever service you are interested in. So again, that's indianaspark.com, services tab, wellness and mental health supports.
And I'll add that it seems to me that Indiana Spark is doing an amazing job of going out and collecting what are useful resources that are relevant to the work that we do. So it's well worth your time to go to that website and to tune into some of the learning opportunities or the resources that are collected, because they've already done the shopping for us. They're all there. So good question. Go to that website again and take advantage of the resources that have been collected and these upcoming training opportunities, or in particular, our support groups that we're having where we can share ideas and learn together about how to do our work in a better way and feel really good about it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And as an early childhood provider, logging into your iLead account and clicking on My Spark Learning Lab and navigating to mental and social emotional health is another way to see some of those great resources that Steve was just talking about. They do go through quite the vetting process, and we have professionals who really lend a hand in helping us choose some of the best resources to put on there for you all. So My Spark Learning Lab is another place you can go to get those resources. It looks like Darcy has also dropped in the comment box that inquiry form. So if you are interested in finding out more about our provider support groups or other services that we're providing on this topic, you can fill out that inquiry form that is in the comment box below. Do we have any other questions that have come through, Darcy?
We do not have any additional questions at this time.
All right. Well, thank you all again for joining us on our first Wellness Wednesday. Again, we look forward to having more of these chats with you all. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and I wish everyone wellness on this Wednesday.
Yes, thank you. Bye, everyone.